Welcome everyone to Monday Morning Morons for September 11th, 2017. This week's overall theme is feminism, because there were lots of related articles in the news this week. For anyone who thought this particular cancer had gone into remission, well, clearly it hasn't. Let's start with the easy stuff first though, and we'll progress into the more juicy bits later. Pop up the first one, Bob. See this car? It was designed by a woman. Was your car designed by a man or a woman? You've likely never thought about it, and you probably can't tell. Well, you're absolutely correct about one thing, Tara Weingarten. I haven't thought about it, because I simply don't care. I do not frame my entire worldview by gender. Apparently, unlike you, I simply don't find it to be all that fucking important. Evidently, unlike you, I hold firm to the belief that generally speaking, men and women are perfectly capable to do whatever job they want to do. So I don't have to point out or celebrate when a woman happens to do some ordinary mundane shit. I expect that they can, so it's no surprise to me when they do. Obviously, you don't share that particular view. You must think it's some sort of astounding accomplishment when a woman does something like this in order to bother even mentioning it. Perhaps you should elevate your opinion of women's capabilities and stop degrading them with your obviously low expectations. What's next, Bob? Why, I'll never stop speaking out for women. Right on, sister. Me either. Now, call me suspicious here, but I suspect we're not exactly fighting for the same thing, are we? It takes more than guts to be a woman in 2017. Well, apparently in 2017, all it takes to be a woman is a declaration. Or haven't you been paying attention to all this trans shit? This is especially true on social media, where Donald Trump and his supporters have become 21st century schoolyard bullies, and Twitter is their playground. Apparently it isn't, as more and more people get banned for simply not agreeing with your thought police. Hell, some of you dipshits are still trying to ban Trump himself. I've been navigating that playground since the November presidential election. In fact, I spent 2 solid days blocking vile people on Twitter recently after witnessing a truly scary side of humanity. A side that, sadly, has only been swiftly gaining steam. Yeah, $10 says these supposedly vile people just disagreed with you and flung a few mean words your way. Seems to be all it takes to earn such a title these days. After I challenged Paul Nealon, a former Republican congressional candidate, on Twitter this summer, his supporters insulted my appearance and mocked how I looked, with one even going so far as to say I should be euthanized. Called it! What egregious sin had I committed? I dared to stand up to misogyny, to a man hurling vile words at a woman. And I'm sure you took a great deal of time to ponder and consider whether or not calling someone an unpleasant name is enough to constitute the dreaded sin of misogyny, right? No, of course you didn't. After Nealon insulted comedian Sarah Silverman on Twitter, he called her a skank, I simply suggested he shouldn't be calling women names if he wanted to run for public office. Oh my God! He called her a what? Oh, great and benevolent feminist above! How dare he insult a woman with such a horrible word? I bet he kicked a puppy too, didn't he? The nerve of that fascist, misogynist, patriarchal shitlord! Clearly you have not overreacted at all, and had every right to dive right into this discussion that evidently didn't involve you in any way except, vagina, and defend the poor helpless Sarah Silverman from the audacious and unprecedented attack on all women, because she's clearly incapable of doing that herself. From there, things went downhill pretty quickly. Imagine my surprise. Look, Melissa, just because you can't handle mean words typed out by total strangers miles away in some unknown location drifting through the ether doesn't mean no woman can. You are not all women. You don't speak for all women. You don't represent all women. And this last one might be a shock to you, but not all women agree with you. I know. Truth bombs are frequently scary. Relax, catch your breath. It'll be all right. There may have been other taunts. As I sat there scrolling through my feed, I felt more exposed and vulnerable than I'd ever felt before. Strangers who knew nothing about me reduced me to an object. I felt violated, and that broke me. It broke you. Really? You're not just being hyperbolic here? Because if that's actually true, then, honey, there's only one solution for you. Stay off social media. It's a rough place where bad words and insults flow like beer at a frat party. If you can't handle that without breaking, then it's obviously not the place for you. Find somewhere a little quieter and more comforting to your thin skin. Next one, Bob. I've no more patience for this whiner. Feds spend $138,000 asking 4-year-olds about their internal sense of gender identity. Oh, for the love of... The National Science Foundation is spending over $130,000 on a study that asks 4-year-olds about their internal sense of gender identity. A grant for a 2-year study was awarded to the University of Washington this summer. The project will interview 250 children aged 4 to 6 and their parents, asking a series of questions about gendered behavior. Prominent theories of gender development have discussed the degree to which gender identity results from an internal sense of gender and socialization processes, according to the grant. However, tests of these theories have been limited because, for most children, internal gender identity and environmental socialization substantially overlap, rendering it impossible to distinguish the relative impact of each factor on gender development. The study will investigate whether gender theories, such as gender schema theory, that blames society on differences between genders, are sufficient for today's wider range of human gender experiences, where there can be anywhere between 3, 37, and 58 genders. Well, call me cynical, but I'm gonna just bet you've already decided what your conclusion is going to be. The whole 3, 37, and 58 genders bit kinda tips your hand, don't you think? This isn't research, it's horse shit, and we're paying for it. Yay! But how in the name of Zeus's butthole does it take $138,000 to ask people a few questions? I mean, is there some sort of specialized equipment you just have to have before you can open your mouth? Is there some kind of special place you need to reserve and rent to ask these pretty fucking basic questions or something? I don't get it. What is the money for besides lining your own pockets to make sure you don't have to get a real fucking job? Why on God's green earth are we paying for this kind of shit? And the same people will sit by and wonder why we can't afford to give kids free lunches at school or poor families more help. They do know the federal coffers aren't bottomless pit, right? Or maybe they don't. After all, what's $138,000 to a federal government that spends trillions? Insignificant, right? Well, consider this, morons. This is just one of the utterly ridiculous things you keep asking the government to pay for. Add up all the rest, and you can bet it's a significant number. Stop wasting tax money on stupid shit. If you want other people to fund this kind of farcical research, take up a damn donation from the other morons you like to surround yourselves with. What's next, Bob? Booker and Warren. Women in prison deserve dignity. Ha! Yeah, figures. You can tell right from the title where this is going. More of that equality feminists are working so hard for, right? I mean, we didn't say people in prison deserve dignity, just women. Clearly, this is going to be all about equality under the law. I can just feel it. In discussions of prison reform, one group is nearly always overlooked. Women. Women are the fastest growing segment of America's prison population, but because they are typically not the first image that comes to mind when someone thinks of an incarcerated person, they are often afterthoughts in policy discussions about ways to fix our broken system. Well, fuck me! I can't even imagine why we'd think prisoners are overwhelmingly male. That just boggles the fucking mind, doesn't it? Clearly, women in prison is the biggest fucking problem of our time, and we need to deal with that shit right away. Fuck wasting our time on petty shit like bloated budgets, healthcare, social security, food stamps, and all that other shit. We have a couple women criminals behind bars, people. Focus. In July, we introduced the Dignity for Incarcerated Women Act, a bill that would help address the unjust conditions incarcerated women face. The bill would institute a number of reforms that strengthen family ties and support rehabilitation, including requiring the Federal Bureau of Prisons to consider the location of children when placing mothers behind bars, expanding visitation policies for primary caretakers, banning shackling and solitary confinement for pregnant women, and prohibiting prisons from charging for essential healthcare items such as tampons and pads. Wait. Let me get this straight. If a woman commits a crime and even makes it to court, which is already less likely than a male, then she's found guilty of that crime, as I said, less likely than a man, and she gets sentenced to the already 60% lighter sentence a male in her situation would get, and finally gets put into prison, then we need to consider where her children are before we decide which prison to put her in, increase her visitation rights, take extra special care if she's pregnant, and give her some more free shit on top of the food, housing, cable television, internet, and paycheck if they do anything besides twiddle their thumbs because vagina. Have I got that right? Well then, pardon me, but fuck you. The mass incarceration wave that began in the 1980s had a devastating impact on women. Since 1980, the number of women serving time in prison has skyrocketed by over 700%. Much faster than the rate of incarcerated men. Gee, I don't know, but isn't it a bit harder to increase an already enormous number? Nah, of course not. Let's talk percentages because that looks scarier, right? In today's prisons, it's not uncommon for pregnant women to be shackled or for moms to be forced to choose between using the little money they have to call home to talk to their kids and buying sanitary products. My heart fucking bleeds for them, Moron. Why don't we just buy them a damn cell phone while we're at it? In prison, many women find themselves without the tools and support necessary to deal with their traumas or recover from addiction. Prison staff are not sufficiently trained to interact with women who have suffered trauma, and many prisons lack the programs and resources to help women successfully address these issues. Jesus Christ, this isn't supposed to be the Betty Ford clinic, you twat. It's prison. They're in there for a reason. I know you don't want to think about it because that might affirm women's agency and crumble your entire fucking worldview, but they committed a crime. We didn't just run out on the street, snatch up some random woman, and toss her ass in jail. What's next on your agenda? Give them the fucking keys so they can come and go as they please? Fuck off with this shit. They made a choice. That choice has consequences. Those consequences are not supposed to be a day pass to the fucking Ritz Hotel and Spa. The unpleasantness of prison is meant to serve as a deterrent to crime, you dolt. Not a free pass to a comfy life of leisure at the taxpayer's expense. And until you're willing to discuss giving males the exact same treatment under the law that women already receive, then I'm not interested in giving women more special fucking privileges. Next, I'm done with the insane clown posse. Ah, yes. This one was kind of a big deal, but I'm not going to cover this one just yet. She gave her speech on Thursday, and I've linked it in the bottom for anyone who wants to watch it. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you do so because, of course, the news agencies are quote-mining the shit out of it and spinning their chosen narratives. It'll help you distinguish between fact and bullshit if you just listen to what she actually said. Anyway, the reason I'm not going to cover this one just yet is because she hasn't actually changed anything at all yet. Despite her language, which I'll admit was encouraging, I'm adopting the wait-and-see approach on this one. I want to see what changes actually happen before I decide whether this is a good or bad thing. And when those changes are published, then we'll be able to dissect exactly what's going to happen. So let's just kind of wait and see for now. No, we've got time for one more before we wrap it up. Give us one more, Bob. Fewer Americans value a college degree. Gee, what a surprise. I can't imagine why that might be. Americans are losing faith in the value of a college degree, with majorities of young adults, men and rural residents saying college isn't worth the cost, a new Wall Street Journal NBC News survey shows. Well, considering the ever-skyrocketing cost, what a shock. Big shifts occurred within several groups. While women, by a large margin, still have faith in a 4-year degree, opinion among men swung significantly. 4 years ago, men, by a 12-point margin, saw college as worth the cost. Now they say it is not worth it by a 10-point margin. Gee, another enormous surprise. I just can't fathom why men might feel it's not worth their time and energy to go to college. Must be counting on the patriarchy to give them their male privilege checks, huh? Today, Democrats, urban residents, and Americans who consider themselves middle and upper class generally believe college is worth it. Republicans, rural residents, and people who identify themselves as poor or working class Americans don't. But wait, Democrats are the voice of the working class, remember? The poor, downtrodden, underprivileged masses struggling against those evil corporate giants to scratch out a meager living, right? So why would Republicans, the working class, and the poor loathe college so much? Let me think. Nope. I just can't think of any reason at all. Let's wrap this up with our weekly dose of toxic masculinity. Fair warning, this one is very likely going to piss you off. It's not pleasant. A Utah woman was sentenced to prison Monday for locking her then 12-year-old son in a feces-coated bathroom and starving him for more than a year. Brandy K. Janes, 36, of Tokerville, received 3 consecutive sentences of 1 to 15 years in prison for child abuse, according to The Spectrum. Janes could serve up to 45 years in the Utah State Prison. The mother pleaded guilty to causing her son's malnutrition. The young boy also was found to suffer from a protracted loss of use of limbs and extensive emotional and mental delays. Earlier this month, after officials found what they described as a torture chamber inside Jane's home, according to The Spectrum. Officials said the boy weighed 33 pounds when they discovered him. Judge Eric Ludlow said he had never seen anything like this in his 30-year career and described Jane's actions as deplorable. This is the real meaning of the word deplorable, folks. Not just some random person who happened to disagree with your political position and voted for a candidate you don't like. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've never seen anything like this, Ludlow said. I've handled murder cases, rape cases, and I've never seen anything like this. It's unbelievable, quite frankly. Deputy County Attorney Angie Reddish Day read a letter from Jane's son in court. The boy explained the conditions he lived in while he was locked away in Jane's home. Instead of eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I would only get one meal of a couple hot dogs every other day for months, the statement said. I felt frozen when I was drenched with ice-cold water in the winter. The young victim was discovered bolted in a bathroom that was coated in feces, the court statement read. The victim was found locked in a space that was set up for confinement specifically, according to Reddish Day. The evidence and the boy's testimony suggests he was kept in isolation for years. Janes also monitored the inside of the bathroom using a surveillance camera. Now, this is the part that got me. Ludlow said he found the victim's letter particularly heart-wrenching, especially when the young boy said he would like to talk to and see his mother again at some point. She did horrible things to me, but she's still my mom, the statement said. I feel safe now. I started feeling safe when I got away from her. Imagine how horrible all this was for that boy, and he knows very well his mother was responsible for all of it. Yet you can tell from his statement that he still has it within his heart to forgive her. She's still my mom. Man, he must be toxic to the bone, huh? I mean, he just can't help it. He's a boy. It's an inherent trait only reinforced by the society monster, right? I'll see you all next time.